Hey, welcome back. It's May 7th. I want to share some rather interesting news today on the development on Bitcoin. US and China are expected to return back to the talking tables on tariffs and trade. Now, this has actually have sparked the markets today to rise up. Ahead of this meeting, China have incidentally injected some liquidity, like a stimulus package, because we all know that China are not really faring fairly well economically speaking. They're being down in the dumps and they had to do something, and one way to resolve that is to inject some liquidity into the country, into the markets, in order to attract investors. And similarly, the US have quietly injected $20 billion worth of its own liquidity into the economy. Particularly, they purchased 3-year treasury bonds into the market, and collectively this have actually sparked good news and a good sentiment for the market. So that is one of the reasons why we are seeing markets today rising across the spectrum. Next on the list are banks. Now, there's been an interesting article that's been released by Bitwise, the chief investment officer of Bitwise, which is a US asset manager, where they made a claim that the expectations are for banks to start issuing their own Bitcoin spot ETFs by the end of 2025 alone. Now, if you recall, we have a handful of several Bitcoin spot ETFs, particularly from asset managers like the likes of BlackRock, Fidelity, and so on. Well, the banks are expected to do the same thing, again, with the same notion, in order to attract capital into their own ETF products in order to get the Bitcoin underlying exposure for their clients. This has always been one of the impending milestones that I've explained in many of my videos in my channel, which is all the more reason why you ought to subscribe to learn more. Next on the list, Metaplanet and Strategy, formerly MicroStrategy, have been loading up in recent times more Bitcoins into their corporate treasuries, which is nothing new there. It's just kind of a continuity of their strategy in motion. Next on the list, which I find very interesting, Eric Trump have actually reported to a handful of Bloomberg reporters that his father, President Trump, owns a hell of a load of Bitcoins. Now, it's not at all surprising why he made that revelation, because we all know, and this was, I think, in my own personal opinion, one of the fundamental reasons why the US electorate have voted Trump back in office, is the pro-business, pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin stance administration to the country. So by making that revelation can only mean a good thing, in that Trump and his administration, leaving aside whether you like the man or not, is pro-Bitcoin, is pro-crypto and pro-business. So this is a good revelation, and again would add more good sentiment on Bitcoin as that leading digital asset, leading store of value. And lastly today, I've seen one of the charts recently where there's $4 billion worth of shorts to be liquidated once the Bitcoin price reaches $100,000. Now, this means that there's going to be that imminent short squeeze in the market, which means that even though the $4 billion worth of short positions on Bitcoin is going to be returned back into the Bitcoin network, and maybe a momentary drop in price, we shouldn't hesitate, because that is a golden opportunity for the whales, for the institutions, for the corporations, for the sovereigns, to seize that moment to buy and subsequently push the price of Bitcoin up into new all-time highs. That is the expectation. So whenever you see that small blip happening, usually the tendency there is because of these short positions being liquidated. So again, this is all the more reason why you shouldn't fall into the trap of panic selling, because this is just going to be a momentary blip. As I said, it's a golden opportunity for the whales particularly, as well as for the rest of us retail investors who have some spare cash floating around, to seize that golden opportunity to buy more Bitcoin into our own stash. So these are all the news that I expect during the month of May. And if you sum all of these news together, it can only mean one thing. All of these positive market sentiments in Bitcoin is going to shoot the price of Bitcoin itself to the roof. And I wouldn't be at all surprised that we may beat the 108 previous all-time high into new highs because of this and what's left to come. So hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. If you have, please don't forget to hit the like button, to share the video to other colleagues and friends, and if you haven't done so, to please subscribe to my channel, as I regularly publish some interesting videos such as these, anything to do with Bitcoin, blockchain technology, and the future of finance. So till next time.